What's up, everybody? We're back at it here Wednesday, second to last day of trial. Judge is keeping this thing on schedule, so we are going to have a short rebuttal tomorrow. We do have some specifics on timing left for each side, and it is just hilarious to me which side actually ran out of time and who was complaining about the delays and people taking so much longer. We'll get to that later. But today was full of a discussion of damages. How much money will be awarded if Terry Sanderson wins this case on liability? So, for some of the questions and some of the discussion, we're going to assume that Terry Sanderson wins so that we can really try to think about damages and how we would calculate damages in this case if Terry Sanderson did win liability. Let's say the jury takes a vote, 3/4 say Terry Sanderson wins. Even if you're outside of that 1/4 vote, then you start to discuss damages. We've talked a lot about who did it, how it's difficult to prove, how Terry Sanderson has the burden of proof, and maybe he didn't reach that, which is fine. It's fine. But we're going to kind of put that liability discussion aside today as we talk damages. And we're going to go through all the witnesses and, of course, answer all of your questions. So please take a second, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get to the first witness of the day, who I've been waiting for since opening statements. Because when we heard the discussion of prior MRIs, that always piques my interest, number one. Then after the plaintiff's neuroradiologist testified, and he had never seen the prior scans, that made me get a little side-eyed, like, what are you guys doing, plaintiff's attorneys? By the way, I was messing around with a custom layout. Do you guys like that any better? I can't really tell. Maybe we'll try this for a second, just for fun. So we are going to get to this testimony and how he would potentially be a more reliable witness because, no, it burns the eyes, somebody said. Okay, then I'll go back. Sorry. All right. So anyways, so he would potentially be a more reliable witness because he did, in fact, see the prior testimony. So let's listen to what he had to say. And I tweeted that I fully expect for him to absolutely shred the permanent brain damage caused by this incident as proven by these MRIs. So here we go. Let's listen to this together here.
Does that work? This study does show imaging that was, or findings that were demonstrated over a decade of imaging, in this case dating back to 2009. One of them was a mild degree of cortical volume loss or loss of brain volume. The other was in this area here, these are the ventricles, and it showed as disproportionate enlargement of the ventricles relative to the amount of tissue loss in the gray matter and overall brain volume. The findings around the ventricles, these white areas, are very typical of what's called microvascular disease, where brain matter around the ventricles is deprived of oxygen over a long period of time, and that results in gliosis or scarring. This pattern is very typical of what we call microvascular ischemic white matter disease, and that was present in 2009.
And did I hear you correctly earlier? Do you have specialized training in those particular findings beyond what a typical radiologist might have?
My fellowship training and experience in neuroradiology and consistently reading brain MRI gives me expertise in looking at these findings, which we often see on a regular basis.
I see. So this is a post-ski collision image, correct?
This particular sequence is from 2019. My understanding is the accident occurred in 2016.
Yeah, and I think you said 19, but you pointed to 2017.
I'm sorry, 2017. Yes,
right.
Correct.
Yes, and so you said earlier, I believe, that the same findings you're pointing to, again, not just Dr. Gibby's findings with the green arrows, but the other ones you just talked about, they're in the pre-accident images. Is that right?
Yes, my review of the imaging that was done at the Veterans Administration Hospital in 2009 shows these similar findings, and in the reports that were provided by the neuroradiologists who read the imaging at that time, they described these findings.
Right. Okay. So
and we knew as soon as we had those green arrows pointing to certain areas of the brain and Owen's locked in, this is, or it might have been James locked in. This is where you think you can see objective findings on the MRI of the brain injury Terry Sanderson suffered as a result of this accident. And the plaintiff's expert said yes, because he put those green arrows there. Okay. And you can just tell sometimes when lawyers ask certain questions, they know they're going to get you. And I said, if you're going to come with that, you better have the goods. And this guy today was the goods.
Let's maybe have you sit down again, and I'll pull up those slides that you made. Thank you. Thanks. So this is Defendant's Exhibit 101A. All right, move to admit this as a demonstration.
Slide is also a what's called a flare sequence, a T2 flare sequence.
So just I want to point out real quick, there's a very faint pink arrow pointing to the same spot the green arrow was pointing to. And this is on the prior MRI, showing basically the same findings. You can have experts get up and say whatever you want. You can have, when I say biased, again, everybody takes bias a little bit different way. But when you have family members of a party on both sides in this case, so I think I'm being fair and even-handed, they come into their testimony with bias. They want to help their family member for the most part, okay? So that's what I mean when I say biased. When you have biased witnesses coming in and testifying for their family members, when you have biased experts coming in and testifying for a certain side that paid them some money, sometimes you can toss that out. Sometimes juries take it or leave it. Sometimes they like one expert and not the other. But what do juries always trust? Their own eyes and their own ears. And when you can put two MRI scans, one before the crash and one after it, and they look exactly the same, that is incredibly difficult to get around as a plaintiff. Because the jury is going to say, I can look at this. I can see his brain looks the same. And then it's easier to tack on, well, he dealt with depression. He dealt with anger. He dealt with all these issues before. So this was the most damning evidence for the brain injury. In this case, the long-term brain injury, not the mild concussion lasting 3 months. I think the defense basically locked that in, that it's more likely than not that that was a result of this crash. Not that it was not Terry Sanderson's fault. It's a double negative. But again, regardless of whose fault, that mild traumatic brain injury concussion did occur as a result of this crash and was acute. Most of them have agreed to that.
Sequence done in what's called an axial plane, which just means the orientation, the way the image was acquired to the brain. This image was acquired in March of 2009 at the Veterans Administration Hospital.
So that's before the accident, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and again, when I say accident, I mean the ski collision in 2016.
Yes.
And it's not terribly easy to see, but I can call it out here. There's a little arrow. Do you recognize that?
I put that arrow there.
So, sorry, I'm just going to pause for a second. I didn't talk about the directed verdict argument. I will get to that after this first witness. So I jumped the gun here to talk about this witness, but I will go back and talk about the DV argument that Owens made and what the judge's decision was.
Yes.
Okay, and what does it point to?
That arrow points to white matter disease, similar to what Dr. Gibby had pointed out in the imaging from 2017.
Right. Okay, so in other words, this is a prior finding that's the same as the post-accident finding Dr. Gibby saw.
Yes, about 8 years earlier.
Okay, got it. And what is this finding associated with?
Again, most commonly.
Same finding 8 years earlier, AKA no objective changes. Now, the plaintiff tries to start arguing, that's fine, but the subjective things have changed and the subjective things are important. And I agree with them. Subjective things are important, but they made the argument that the objective findings in the MRI did matter. And I think they were just kind of wrong. And I think their neuroradiologist, their guy that reads MRIs, didn't do a good job of differentiating, because I don't want to blame the plaintiff's lawyers, but usually the plaintiff's lawyers would provide those prior scans to that expert so that he could testify and differentiate and do his job.
We see this with what we term microvascular ischemic white matter disease. There are predisposing risk factors for this, where in some patients it may be accelerated, but it's typically a process that's due to pathology or abnormalities in the very small, some of the smallest blood vessels that supply the brain, particularly around the ventricles.
Then I'll go to the next one, which is 101B, and again, call out a section here at the bottom. There's kind of a faint red arrow. Again, did you put that there? And why did you put that there?
Because it, again, shows the same pattern of white matter disease that was demonstrated on MRI of 2017.
Okay, so again, a finding before the accident that was there also after the accident.
That's correct.
And
and you get the gist. So they do this basically with Dr. Gibby's entire testimony. And this doctor, Dr. Black, says that Dr. Gibby was basically looking for any objective evidence of brain damage or a brain injury. And why would he do that? Because we've learned throughout this trial, and as we try to teach juries throughout every one of our trials, that clinical correlation is how all this works and what's so important. And how do you do a clinical correlation? You have objective findings on an MRI or an X-ray, something like that, with subjective complaints. They're a very important part of the equation. The plaintiff or the patient telling you what hurts, when it started hurting, what was it like before the crash, what was it like after. Those are subjective complaints. You put those together as a clinician and you determine how the injury occurred and what the injury is. So in order to get that, the plaintiffs were trying to find some objective evidence in this brain MRI, and I think this expert completely shredded it. Completely. And again, Gibby was limited because he didn't have that prior imaging. He also says in his report that there's no acute brain injury. The MRI was taken years later, so even anything you saw here would not necessarily be acute. Then on cross, they make a pretty good argument. The MRI pre-accident was asymptomatic, meaning he didn't come in with some kind of brain injury, and that's why he got the MRI. They did it as part of the workup for the stroke in his eye, which is not indicative of actually a brain injury, even though that's how it's kind of been used by the defense throughout this case. He says there's no, the plaintiff's lawyer asks, so there was no change post-accident? And he's like, correct, there was not. I don't know why he asked that question. And then he locks in that his opinions are only limited to this MRI image. He says yes. And of course, as James often does on redirect, since cross, anything change in your opinions? Expert says no. All right. Before we move on to the next witness, let's talk directed verdict. And then I'm going to also answer the overarching question some people are angry about, that we're going to talk damages tonight. So first, directed verdict. He starts out, which I like this argument by Owens, by mentioning some of the prior motions he's already won on causes of actions that have been dismissed. And he first tries to throw out the whole case because nobody actually proved or said that Gwyneth Paltrow did anything that was negligent. Pretty good argument, because there wasn't anybody that specifically said it like a lot of the ski instructors said about Terry Sanderson. But Terry Sanderson's own testimony and Mr. Ramon's testimony would at least make it a jury question as to whether or not she used reasonable care while she was skiing. So the judge said denied to that one. But the post-accident delay damages or negligence, I again thought Owens had a pretty good argument that there's no real testimony that she did anything wrong post-accident. And even if she did, what damages did those cause? And based on the judge's question, I really thought the judge was leaning toward granting this, especially because he asked a certain question to the plaintiffs. How would this even change your case or your arguments or your damages if I did throw out the post-accident negligence? So I was starting to think the judge leaned that way, but then the plaintiffs responded with a good argument. And this is kind of the fun thing about lawyering and reacting and knowing what happens in a case. And the plaintiff's lawyers argued, well, there was emotional distress. He felt like he was abandoned. When he came to, nobody was there. It was hard for him to file the claim and to figure out who did it. And the judge even said, well, she did give Deer Valley her information, so you can't argue that. But that motion is also denied. So he lost both of his directed verdict motions, which is absolutely normal and happens in just about every case. So that was the beginning of the day. So some people are asking, why would we talk about damages? Terry Sanderson is obviously going to lose this case. There's no way he can win. Well, here's what I'll say. If that was the case, then why did the defense talk about damages? Why did they call so many witnesses and pay so many experts to review medical records and discuss damages? Well, they did it because there is a chance they lose. It is a non-zero chance that they find Gwyneth Paltrow is at fault. And while I think she has a better chance of winning this case, if she loses, they had to discuss damages. And they had to try to mitigate and limit those damages. So regardless as to who we think is going to win right now, damages is part of the discussion and was most of the evidence and testimony today. Exactly. Folly Beach Vibe says never say never, especially as a trial lawyer. So because we don't know what they're going to do, I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, and we have a poll. But wait, don't answer the poll yet. I don't know if John's posted it, but we're going to probably wait till about 9:15, 9:20 to post that poll after we've had a second to discuss more of the damages. But regardless of what we think is going to happen, it is important for us to consider, if he wins, would he even get anything? Would he get damages? And if he is going to get damages, how much would this chat and this discussion and the people here, how much would they give him? Okay? And we're going to discuss that. Because as we talk through these witnesses, what they say doesn't have a ton to do with whether or not Terry Sanderson caused this crash, but instead, if he wins, the defense still thinks he shouldn't get any money. Dr. Robert Hirsch, I think. I don't know, he mispronounced his name a couple times. Chief medical officer. Used to be a neurologist, and that's why he's here testifying, but now he's a big shot. And after he starts giving his resume, Owen says, nerd. And I was like, all right, that was kind of endearing. I kind of chuckled to myself, actually, the first time he said it. But then when he said it, and actually some people in the courtroom laughed, but then when he said it again, I was like, all right, man, enough. You did something likable. Don't overdo it. And then he continued to say stuff like, then you read 3,000 pages of junk, didn't you? It's like, dude, come on. Keep it together. Keep it together. I actually thought he had a pretty good day overall. But yeah, that was not great. It was kind of awkward, especially when he apologized later for calling him a nerd. And the, in my opinion, much cooler doctor was like, it's all right. We call ourselves nerds. But that was just cringy, which seems to be his specialty. Then we get to his opinions, which, as you guys know, I like to boil down witnesses and especially experts' opinions. What are his opinions? This neurologist, which is the appropriate doctor to talk about brain injuries, says that everything Terry Sanderson is going through now post-accident is and are symptoms of pre-existing conditions, and he does not need any future care as a result of this collision. He may need future care, but it's not because of this crash. Again, going to damages. He said that he did likely have a mild concussion as a result of the accident. And again, as I've said before, if this was my case, and some people ask me on Twitter again if I would take this case, as I sit here right now, I'm not sure I believe in Terry Sanderson's position and how this affected. Like, if he came in here and he told me he got in this accident, he told me he got hurt, okay, I get you. And it was Gwyneth Paltrow's fault. Okay. Like, I believe I could get behind, right? If he came in my office, I could get behind his version of her hitting him, right? But when he started to discuss the damages and some of the stuff that came out today, it would have been a lot harder for me to continue, I'll say. And this witness was another example of that. Likely had a concussion, and he didn't say it, but I believe all the testimony agrees he broke his ribs as a result of this accident. So, because of that, that's what I would have focused on. Not this brain injury changed his life and made everything worse. He could no longer do all the things that he loved because of this brain injury. Misty, in my line of work, so in criminal defense, some people would say, no, you don't have to believe your client, especially if the state screwed something up, but you have to hold the state to their burden. In civil cases, especially on contingency basis, I would never take a case where I don't believe my client. I have to believe my client, or I can't go to bat for them. It's just not in me. Okay. So, the defense tries to get him to talk about dementia, but there's an objection. More on that later. And then I thought this was really interesting. They discuss with every witness that they're going to get up here and criticize you for not meeting with this patient. And I want to listen to what this doctor specifically says about that, because I thought it was kind of an interesting discussion. And it goes to witness preparation. And I wonder if Owens prepared him for this question, because it seems like he didn't.
And after?
Yes,
Does he in fact have that condition?
to be consistent with that condition.
You mentioned earlier that his conditions are not permanent, as plaintiff's experts claim. And I just want to comment, do you believe Dr. Fong to have used unreliable science to make some of her opinions?
Objection, pleading. Sustain his grounds.
So if I sustain objection, just hold on. Sorry. Thanks.
They're about to get up and criticize you for not seeing this patient. Why didn't you? Why wouldn't you? Why would it be necessary if you needed to?
Yeah, well, I would always be willing, and actually didn't know that was an option. But in this case, and with
That right there to me, I mean, I would have done it. I would have gone off that if I was a plaintiff's lawyer. They did talk about it, but it was a little more argumentative. I would have been like, you would have, if you would have known it was an option, you would have met with him, right? Because that would be helpful to meet with him. I would have been nice about it, not as angry about it. But it was interesting. He said, I didn't know that was an option.
many patients in my practice, we review tons of records before we see them. Actually, Mr. Sanderson probably had 10 times the amount of records that I have before I see my patients and collect, you said 3,000 pages and lots of imaging. So I can know with 90% certainty going in based on the before and after imaging, the neuropsych testing over a period of years, his reports over time. I can know with 90% accuracy what's going on. So if I went in there, I'd be trying to figure out, does he have NPH or not? And what can I do to help him with his depression, anxiety, and other memory problems?
Would you be treating him or evaluating the ski injury?
No, I'd be providing counseling that the ski injury was not part of it.
And that right there was a huge haymaker for the defense. I would be counseling that the ski injury was not the cause of this. I would be counseling him for his mental well-being that this ski accident was not the cause of all of his problems.
Now, you refer people all the time to neuropsychologists, is that true?
Yes.
And we're about to hear from two. But you did have the benefit of multiple neuropsychologist exams at the VA, is that true?
Correct.
And do you know them to be good neuropsychologists?
I don't know them.
Okay. Do you know them to be not hired by either side, his normal treating provider?
I'm glad he said he didn't know, because there's a lot of things you can say about a lot of different doctors in a lot of different places. So to comment on doctors you're not sure of, and for him to act like just because they work at the VA, they must be amazing, is not genuine in my opinion. So I liked how this doctor stuck to his guns and just said what he believed.
Providers?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And these were voluminous evaluations, were they not?
Yes.
And
Yeah, because we know that the VA never cuts any corners, and the VA never has any complaints about doctors not taking enough time with vets that treat there. I mean, I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm not saying they're all good, but there have been plenty of complaints from plenty of clients and people I know about how the VA doctors treat some of these veterans. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad you said it, Mimi, because I don't want to besmirch the VA, and there are some really good doctors there. Hey, here we go. Perfect. Disney gal. That's all I'm saying, is you can't just say because they work at the VA, they must be amazing. That's all I'm saying. And there you go. My dad loves treating vets and they love him. Exactly. I'm glad we got both sides of this comment here.
and what did they conclude?
They were essentially normal, and they showed that he was performing above average.
And there you have it. That's basically what they concluded from their meetings with Mr. Sanderson. I also liked how this doctor was like, listen, I get it. Having this nationally televised lawsuit makes it more difficult. It makes all this more difficult. And I would counsel against it. And basically, he's like, wouldn't the best thing for him for this lawsuit to be over? I think that's a good line of questioning. And he said, I felt anxious just coming in here, especially with all the national recognition and stuff like that. Oh, Lito, we'll get there. I still disagree with you, but we'll get there. Then he says, Jenny said this lawsuit makes him feel powerful, didn't she? Objection sustained. And here is an issue I don't think a lot of you are going to like, but I'm still going to say it. How many times have we heard Steve Owens read Jenny's depo and use Jenny's depo as a piece of evidence and talk about Jenny's depo and talk about what Jenny thought and felt and how Jenny may come testify? and how we're going to read her deposition into evidence. But the defense closed their case in chief today. And you know what we didn't see? Jenny on the stand. You know what we didn't hear? Him reading her deposition into evidence. That's just gamesmanship. And I think it could be a very serious appellate issue. That was basically used as if that was in evidence, and it never came in to evidence. I think it's interesting, and we'll see what happens as it continues. They didn't have time, people are saying. They had time for a lot of things. If it was as important, I didn't hear them read Moses's depo to impeach people 50 times. I didn't hear them read Apple's depo to impeach people 50 times. I didn't hear them read 90% of the stuff they presented as much as they talked about Jenny's depo. Just trust me. Trust me. It was interesting. And we'll see what happens. Everybody's saying they ran out of time. No. They used their time. They chose how to use their time. All right. On cross, do you commonly render opinions without an examination? Basically, he says no. But again, he went at it kind of hard as opposed to going a more methodical and friendly way, especially when he gives you a nugget like, oh, I didn't know I was allowed to do that. Insinuating that would have been great if I could have done that. He may not have even read some of the before and after witnesses' depos. Doesn't seem like he even considered the changes in Terry before and after, all of which I think are good points. I think I've caught Bob Sykes's cough because I'm not sleeping, so I'm getting sick again. And then they get into the executive function test that Goldstein wrote the book on, basically. And I thought it was effective how Sykes went through that and talked about how his scores were low. And I thought the answers from the defense doctor were honest. And I think that was actually a positive for Terry Sanderson. Now, how important is it? I'm not so sure, especially when it gets nuked near the end of the case. But I thought this was actually an effective part of cross. No records say he did this for money. Yeah, correct. People said the change was significant and sudden. I thought that was good. And then no one has ever diagnosed him with dementia, correct? And he said yes. And my notes were, it's so annoying that they keep mentioning dementia if nobody has actually ever diagnosed him with that. But then Owens does his job in a very good redirect when he says, and I'm going to play part of it. I think they had to kind of look for it for a minute, but I'm going to play part of it where, guess what? Dementia is in the records.
And James, are you hooked up? Thanks. 33. And we're going to maybe just bring up just number 2, if you would. I don't know if are you able just to clear number 2? Do you remember, this is part of Dr. Fong's document?
Yes.
And do you recall plaintiff's counsel say, show me in those records where it says the word dementia?
Yes.
All right, so let's look at this. The most likely diagnosis for this appearance.
It's not really what he said. He said he wasn't diagnosed with dementia, but still, I thought this was effective.
Is normal pressure hydrocephalus. The differential would include normal aging brain, Alzheimer's, dementia, subcortical arteriosclerotic encephalopathy, and multi-infarct dementia. All right, this is plaintiff's own retained expert, right?
Yep.
And she's talking about, hey, could be some dementia stuff going on here, right?
Correct.
Objection. That's a differential diagnosis. It doesn't suggest it's going on.
That's a speaking objection, Your Honor. It's inappropriate.
It is a speaking objection. It is inappropriate, but that is exactly what you'd call a misleading statement and a misleading argument. But I thought it was effective by Owens, and it does say it in the records. There was actually another mention of it. There was 2 mentions of it, and they brought that out as well. And then they continued redirect, and he talked about how many times clients will exaggerate claims when they have a case like this. They'll malinger for secondary gain. And then again, he says, I'm being told to sit down. There are 2 things that I will not miss when this trial is over. Number 1 is I'm being told to sit down. as like a way to endear yourself to the jury. Like, oh, am I being annoying? Sorry, even my team is telling me I'm being annoying. And number two, also trying to endear themselves to the jury. I'm just a country lawyer. You're going to have to slow it down or dumb it down for me. I'm just a country lawyer. And it's actually hilarious because I think I'm going to have time to play a clip at the end where even the judge and lawyers on his team are like, well, you're just a country lawyer, right, Mr. Sykes? It's like, I'm over that. The jury has to be rolling their eyes at those comments at this point. But I digress. On recross, let's hear how Bob, again, I like this kind of lawyering. I like the back and forth. I like the use of the records because Bob comes back and says, okay, while it may mention dementia in the records, what does that actually mean and how is it mentioned?
Major signs of dementia.
Okay. He reportedly sought out neuropsychological testing for these symptoms, but also feared that he may be experiencing early dementia symptoms. Okay.
It was smart for him to think that.
It's smart. Mr. Sanderson noted that he felt reassured following the testing, but is still concerned regarding some of the cognitive changes he has experienced, right?
Correct.
And you understand that he was tested and told he doesn't have dementia. You understand that?
Yes.
And no diagnosis.
Correct.
Dementia, ever. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Like, that makes me raise my eyebrows. That's frustrating. That's frustrating to me that they just went through and they know that they put dementia in the minds of the jury. And Laura M says, you either have dementia or you don't. It doesn't come and go. And Laura, I agree with you. And he just answered the question. This expert agreed that Terry Sanderson was tested for dementia, did not have it, and has never been diagnosed with it. So why in the world is the judge allowing this kind of argument to come in? And I think that Owens is making the argument that because it's mentioned as a differential diagnosis, that that's some kind of diagnosis, which it's not. Very interesting to me. Very interesting. And I thought Sykes did a really, really good job in bringing that out. I really did. It's tough. It's tough, man. I don't like to see that. I don't like to see word twisting from country lawyers or city lawyers. Okay. Next witness was the neuropsych expert, reviewed a bunch of records. She's one of the independent concussion consultants. I believe she said in the NFL, or she may have said football. That made me like her immediately. I didn't like her so much later, but immediately I liked her because that's kind of a cool thing. Anytime a doctor works for an NFL team, that's cool. They took a little break to talk about time left. And I thought it was hilarious that after all of Owens' whining, he had actually taken about 25 minutes more time than the plaintiff. More on that later as time went on. Only one side is running out of time. The other has plenty of time left. Just thought that was funny. Back to the neuropsych. Opinions. I liked how they set out their opinions. I like that. The streamlining it, give the headings of the opinions. I like that. I felt like it was much easier to follow and much quicker. You should get these expert witnesses up and down quickly, get their opinions on the record so the jury can have a couple bullet points as to what they said and follow it easy. You don't want to bore the jury. I had a couple of you that are from Utah that went to the trial and told me you looked at the jury and the jury looked bored. Guess what? A lot of other people have messaged me and said they're watching online and they're also bored and they're able to do multiple things. Some of you said, I agree 100% I didn't like her. Some of you said she was my favorite witness of the day. That's what makes this great. And I bet you that's how the jurors are reacting too. Some of them love them. Some of them don't like them. Okay. Plaintiff suffered at most a mild concussion. Again, not a huge collision, exceptional balance, and usually balance is the main issue after a concussion. Increased intake of alcohol shows that it was not a serious concussion because you lose your ability to even drink alcohol or get drunk. You just don't want to do it after you've had a concussion. They reduce your tolerance to alcohol. I thought all that was really good. Then, and here's where I'm going to put Lita's comment up. Now, Lita, maybe I'm misunderstanding your comment, but I told you prior medical records matter with specialists. So we can agree or disagree depending on what you mean. Because I 100% agree that when she said sleep apnea is bad for your brain, insomnia develops dementia. Pre-accident imaging of the brain is relevant. Chronic migraines are relevant. Hypertension, okay. Bad for the brain, but okay. Restless leg syndrome is associated with dementia. Obviously, I didn't know that. I told you guys I don't know much about that. I'm fine with all of that. Guess what she didn't mention? Trigger finger, neck pain, back pain, urinary tract infections, impotence, degenerative disc disease, a torn hamstring, a cut on the thigh. She didn't mention any of those records because they're totally irrelevant. I don't have a problem with prior records coming in as long as they are relevant. I said that. Depression, anger, all that stuff should come in if there are records saying it prior. But we shouldn't talk about this guy's erectile dysfunction. And we shouldn't talk about his trigger finger or his injured knee from 10 years ago. Just my opinion. Mental health issues like anxiety. She thinks Goldstein's own data doesn't match his opinions. So I thought it was kind of interesting. Maybe she's not a very experienced expert witness because it was funny to watch her answer the objections. When he would say, objection, that's outside the scope for knowledge. She's like, no, actually I studied this and it's within my, and the judge was like, hold on a second. So that was funny. She was answering the objections that were coming in. But I think that was kind of the beginning of showing that she was very much pushing to help the defense. And she was, in my opinion, going a little overboard in who she was trying to help. And it was confirmed because guess what? How many experts have we talked about in this trial? I feel like there's been tons of experts and thousands of dollars spent on those experts. So when she says that I don't know how much I've been paid, that's annoying. It's not true. If it is true, I shouldn't say it's not true. Okay. I don't like to call people liars, especially if I don't know. So what I'll say is, if it is true, it's purposeful because this is readily available to you as an expert. And you better believe you're not just going to stop charging unless you're that, really nice Southern gentleman from the Murdoch case who kind of stopped charging. But I do not like that. That does not make her seem endearing that she doesn't know how much she got paid. Ma'am, you're paid to be here. You're not this guy's doctor. You're not trying to help Terry Sanderson. But instead of go that route, instead of making her look unlikable, Sykes, unfortunately, yeah, Kristen, I'm with you. Sykes, unfortunately, decided to become even more unlikable with her by saying something like, what did he say? So you just come here to court and you smile and you testify. It was something like that. And I was like, ugh, come on. And I didn't like it then, Keely. I think every expert should know what they've been paid at least up until they go to trial. In most jurisdictions, the other side has a right to that information. And as if saying you don't know how much you got paid makes you unbiased is a joke. It doesn't, because you still were paid. All right. You never saw him and you had these opinions. Yes. So this was interesting, and I'm going to play a quick clip from this. Because I thought the other guy's answer was actually really good and honest about meeting with the client, if she was my expert, I would not have liked her answer to when Sykes started to push about how she hadn't met with Terry Sanderson, yet she had all these opinions. Let's listen to that.
Okay. Not rendering diagnosis. Let's talk about what you are doing. Is it appropriate, is it responsible for a neuropsychologist to comment on somebody without actually seeing them clinically in the office?
Again, if he was my patient, yes. He's not my patient. I was hired to review records and provide opinions on the facts in the records.
Aren't there standards for the American Psychological Association that recommend that you see someone before rendering opinions on them?
Those ethical principles apply to clinical practice and patient-doctor relationships, which does not apply in this situation.
So you don't have the...
So I did like that answer. That certain rules apply in clinical situations and different rules apply when it's forensics. I did like that. And another doctor said kind of something similar. But then this was the interesting part.
Same ethical principles in this case that you would if you was your patient. Is that the idea?
Ethical principles applies to clinical care. This isn't clinical care.
Okay. Do you agree that if you're going to evaluate someone and then come before a jury and tell us about them, that it's better to have more information or less information about them? What do you think? More information or less information?
The more information, the better.
Okay. Do you get more information if you actually have a clinical interview with someone?
As a neuropsychologist, my job is to evaluate for brain injury, and he had had numerous neuropsychological evaluations, and none of which have found evidence of brain injury. And so a fourth neuropsychological evaluation wasn't going to uncover brain injury that nobody else uncovered. So there was no point in me providing another evaluation.
So what was the point of you reviewing his records and giving an opinion? I don't want my expert to be like, yeah, there was no point for me to do that. Because then what's the point of you coming up and testifying at all? Why don't we just use those records? Why don't we just believe those people? So I didn't love, in my opinion, I didn't love how she was just like, other people have already, evaluated him, so there was no reason for me to. I don't like that. I don't like that explanation personally. Now, you guys might have thought it didn't matter. That's just kind of how I took it and didn't like it. Then Everman turned down to do an IME. It was really interesting. He kind of got into it with her, like, you could have evaluated him. This is what I would have done with the other witness, because he's the one that said he would have liked to evaluate him. She was like, I didn't even need to. So why he went down this road about, did you do the IME? Did you not? Did you turn it down when she didn't? She didn't think she needed to do it. So I wouldn't have had that argument with her. And I didn't think that came off well for Sykes. She also, I thought this was a good highlight by Sykes. She basically totally disregarded the girlfriend's testimony. And then in other times we heard defense experts say all the witnesses had something to gain from their testimony. One person who had nothing to gain for her testimony is the ex-girlfriend who has a new boyfriend. She didn't gain anything from coming and testifying. I felt like she was pretty unbiased as a witness. But then we get to me, the comment that made her seem most argumentative and biased. And maybe this is what soured me on her, because as I'm remembering her testimony, I did like a lot of it, but I really didn't like that she did this. And, sometimes the last thing you remember is how you kind of feel about a witness. And this is the last thing I remember about her testimony. People are saying they don't agree. Totally fine.
Polly, what Polly Harris said. I'm sorry, Polly Gresham. And you gave me a 2-minute Queen of Denmark answer. Now, why did you feel a need to add all that detail when the question was very simple? Why?
Because it's important for the jury to understand. I don't want them to be misled.
Okay. All right. So,
do you hear that? It's very important that the jury understand. I don't want them to be misled. I'm going to back it up a little bit so we can hear what he said. She's basically telling the jury that Bob Sykes is misleading them.
the jury understand?
Observing and aware of his level of functioning in the year prior to this.
No. The jury understands. That was a 2-minute answer to a very simple question. The simple question was, can you tell me what Polly Harris said? I'm sorry, Polly Gresham. And you gave me a 2-minute Queen of Denmark answer. Now, why did you feel a need to add all that detail when the question was very simple? Why?
Because it's important for the jury to understand. I don't want them to be misled.
Okay.
So she doesn't want him to be misled. That's why she answered her question the way that she did without, some people said she thinks she's great with that. Fine. That's fine. And I agreed with her. She was so rude. People said, okay, that's fine. I disagree with her. And somebody's saying I'm totally mischaracterizing everything she said. I think you should go back and watch again and talk about how much she actually considered some of these depots, which she admitted she didn't even read. If you don't read them, you can't consider them. All right, on redirect, did anything change in your opinion? No. But then, one last time, she wants to take her stab at saying something without a question even pending. If this does not show bias, I don't know what does. There is no question pending to her. So let's listen to how this kind of exchange happened at the very end. People are saying, I don't agree with you at all tonight. That's fine. I mean, again, and I'm not telling you to leave if you disagree with me. You can if you're like angry because you disagree with me. I'm not angry at you for disagreeing. So feel free to stay and tell me your opinion in the chat. People disagree with me all the time in this chat, so it makes it fun. But listen, this was really interesting. We haven't seen this yet at all this trial.
And is it still your opinion that plaintiff's course and evolution of self-reported symptoms is inconsistent with the known trajectory of concussion-related symptoms?
Yes.
And is it still your opinion that plaintiff's medical history is notable for a number of comorbid conditions that better explain his reported course of decline?
Yes.
No further questions. Thanks.
No further questions. Thank you. He's done, but she's not. I think I'm going to have to guess that she's not an experienced testifying witness because of how she handled when objections happened and then also how she did this at the end.
Can I add something, please?
Oh, please don't. Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I have a lot of compassion for Mr. Sanderson. I do believe that things are changing for him. It is terrifying when one starts to lose their faculties. And I'm not.
I object to this.
Sustain it.
Non-responsive, thank you.
It's a narrative. If you've got some more questions, go ahead.
Okay.
And James is like, man, I want her to give this answer, but he couldn't think of a question. This is totally inappropriate. I realize some people are like, she's an empath. I like what she was saying. It was nice. I agree with you. It was nice. It was empathetic. It's totally improper. That is not how an expert witness is supposed to handle herself in this situation. My opinion. Okay. Just my opinion. That is absolutely inappropriate. Okay. And James wanted to ask a question. Look at him. He's trying to think of a question to ask that could bring out that answer. And I think if James would have asked something like, so basically they're making it seem like you're paid to sit up here to lie and to hurt Terry Sanderson. Is that what you're trying to do? And then she could have given that answer. I think that would have potentially made it relevant. James is like, I got nothing.
I think we can be done.
Okay.
I think we can be done. I love James. I like that dude. And that was on 1.5 speed. So he sat there and thought about it for a second. All right. Let's see what else we got here. All right. So the next doctor, lots of doctors, is another expert who specifically was responding to Dr. Fong. And whenever you can give your background and your resume and your CV, and you can say the words Princeton and Harvard, you're doing something right. And people usually will listen to what you say. And I actually thought she did a really good job. She's board certified. Fong is not. And there's only like she's one of 6 people in the country with the qualifications that she has. Okay. So I thought her resume, very impressive. Very, very impressive. And then she gets into, we don't even necessarily recognize persistent post-concussion syndrome. John, if you haven't posted the poll yet, let's go ahead and post it to give people an idea of where you would put the damages for pain and suffering for Terry Sanderson right before we get to his testimony. She focused a lot on the before and after, which I thought was good. Again, he punched someone and had a restraining order. Juries don't like people that punch other people, and they don't like people that get restraining orders against them. There were brain scans. Oh, and I loved this. I don't know why. Once one witness says something like this, I'm like, why didn't some of the other witnesses, when they're saying there was no symptomology when he got the brain scan, she did a great job. She said, no, there was complaints of persistent and worsening migraines. That's why he got a brain scan. I was like, why didn't I hear this before? Good job by her. Good job by her. Sometimes he embellishes, sometimes he downplayed. That sounds like our boy Terry. Sometimes it sounds horrible. Sometimes it sounds like nothing. Very interesting. He waited forever to get his cancer treatments. I thought that was kind of telling. She talked about the 45 minutes he was knocked out with a bump on his head, and he didn't even go to the doctor for it, which is wild. Heart conditions not related to her opinions, but may show how he approaches medical conditions. Okay. Borderline. He is an unreliable reporter of his own medical conditions. He had no permanent symptoms. She gave him the benefit of the doubt and would say he did sustain a concussion. And then she also said the rules for forensic situations do not demand meeting with the client in person. I believed her. I was like, she seems legit. I believe her. Yes. Hit that like button if you haven't already. We still have not had a Paltrow video hit 10,000 likes yet. That's my goal. See if we can do it. On cross, she talks about how an evaluation was not necessary. Yes, she wrote a 55-page report. She did not disregard lay witness testimony. He said he tried to make it seem like she disregarded lay witness testimony, and I think he's going to kind of say she disregards lay witnesses. And there were some things she said where it did seem a little dismissive. Actually, I think what she said when I wrote this down was she agrees with expert testimony more than she agrees with lay witness testimony. And if if I had a witness said that said that, here's what I would say. And I'm going to answer this question about the poll here in a second. People always have problems with the polls, but there's a method to the madness. So if a witness said something like, well, the experts are really who you should rely on, not the lay witnesses, which doesn't mean she disregards them, but I would say members of the jury, normal people can sometimes understand and perceive things better than experts, because sometimes experts are looking for something specific to do their job, what they get paid for. And guess who? I wouldn't say this part, but guess who else is a layperson? All of you guys sitting on this jury are lay people. Your opinion matters. Your view matters. What you think matters. I would say that without saying it. Redirect. You can't fake good in these situations, which I thought was great. The daughters were not knowledgeable about their father's mental health history. That was true. And no, she hasn't changed her opinion. Okay. Another time check. The plaintiff had 2 hours and 45 minutes, but then they took 14 minutes away because of a sidebar. Defense had an hour and 21 minutes, but then they added 14 minutes, so they have an hour and 35 minutes. So they were planning on spending 30 minutes on Terry Sanderson today, 5 minutes on rebuttal tomorrow, and 1 hour for closing. Plaintiff has plenty of time. They're going to do an hour and 10 minute for closing. And they said, I think they only had about an hour of rebuttal tomorrow, but it seems like they're going to have over an hour if they want to use it. And again, I just think it's absolutely hilarious that at the end of the second to last day of trial, the defense has 1 hour and 5 minutes left, and the plaintiff has like 2 hours plus left. And the defense was acting like the plaintiff was delaying the case. And they split it 50-50 the time. Very interesting. Somebody just asked, can they use Jenny's depo and closing statement? Absolutely not. That is not in evidence. Okay. You need to weight your poll towards smaller end of scale. 1, 1,000, 10,000. Let me just tell you, as a plaintiff's lawyer, whether you award Terry Sanderson $1 or $10,000, it does not make a bit of difference. That is a big, fat, capital L loss for the plaintiff. So if you clicked that button, the plaintiff lost. I will just tell you. Those are not the numbers you want or expect to see in a case like this. So that's why I did it that way. I'm not going to go up by $1 increments and have 1,000 options. It'll get the gist of, does somebody think this is a low value, mid value, or large value case? That's what I want to know, which brings us perfectly into the time. Actually, first, he had another court TV violation that he had to talk about, a camera on Gwyneth Paltrow, and then he doesn't want objections for these exhibits. I can't believe the judge allows him to do that. If they're valid objections, and the judge even says it, invalid objections will be charged to them. But like, I would, if I was a plaintiff, I was a big judge, if I have a valid objection, I'm going to make it. And if I lose, fine, charge me the 10 seconds. But I'm not just going to agree to not object to stuff that I may object to. I thought that was interesting. Lisa liked this doctor's testimony as well. We're going to get to a lot of your questions here in a few minutes. But first, I'm going to just play the first few minutes of Owen's second round with Terry Sanderson, because I thought it was incredibly effective. And as I'm trying to think about non-economic pain and suffering damages, how did Terry's life change as a result of the injuries he sustained in this accident? Owens completely dismantled it as the last thing the jury will see before coming back tomorrow for closing arguments and deliberation. So before we go through this, if Terry Sanderson wins on liability, here's what the people think in the chat about what his damages would be. 72% say $0 to $10,000. 1% says over $1 million. 1%. And then that leaves about 25 to 30% that have a mid-value range on it from $10,000 to $1 million. I got to be honest, anything under $300,000 probably is a miserable loss for them at this point. But very interesting to hear what you guys think about that and think about the damages, as that was the focus of the case today. So let's listen to the beginning of this cross-examination together for a few minutes. And I actually like it on 1.5 speed because it even seems more like a machine gun coming at Terry Sanderson's case. So let's listen to it together. I know some people don't like it, but we're gonna get through it. Don't worry. Here we go.
Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give in the case now before the court will be the...
So we're trying to work our way in. I'm on a 30-minute clock, so I'm going to try to ask questions very directly and just have you say yes or no.
If I can, I will.
Did you, upon filing your lawsuit in a press conference, compare my client to King Kong coming out of the jungle? Yes or no?
That was not my intention.
Did you do that? Did I make up those words, or are those your words to the press?
I'm not sure, but probably sounds familiar.
Do you dispute it?
I dispute my intentions. That's all I.
King Kong coming out of the jungle.
Press conference.
Pardon?
Press conference. I was pretty.
Did you say those words about my client?
I was pretty what? Like juiced up, adrenaline? You were pretty what? You called the press conference. Like, not great.
I'll just chase someone out of the jungle. That's what I meant.
Did you refer to her as Godzilla to your daughter?
I did not. I don't remember that.
She testified to that.
I don't remember that. It's gone. Sorry.
You told everyone it was a hit and run, right? Wrote to your own hometown newspaper and said, she hit and ran me.
I did say that.
And that's been dismissed by this court. You understand that?
Yes, I guess so. Yes.
I want to talk, please bring that up. This is D110. And do you see it on your screen,
And
sir?
now we get to the pictures.
Yes. Page 400.
Can you maybe
As Owen said, he's a poster. He's a poster. He likes to post stuff on Facebook.
There's the first half. Post-incident travel by Dr. Sanderson, Mr. Sanderson. Did you go to Peru?
Yes.
After the collision. All of these are after the collision, okay?
Yes.
Visit Machu Picchu?
Costa Rica, yes.
Walk the Golden Trail?
Yes.
Machu Picchu is in Peru.
Yes.
Floated down the Amazon?
Yes, I guess so.
Costa Rica. Did you do a zip line?
Same trip, yes.
Did you go to Europe? Visit Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, France, Belgium?
With my daughter, Jenny, yes.
Bottom half, James, please. Did you go to the Netherlands?
So sometimes I say woof, and you guys wonder why I say woof. It's purely from Home Alone. Buzz your girlfriend, woof. It's like, ouch. And that's what I found myself saying as he went through Peru and Machu Picchu and what's it called? Whitewater rafting in the Amazon and zip lining in Costa Rica. It's like, and Kelly's comment here, I think, goes to that. But I mean, wow. This is all post-accident, which once again, if they would have gone with my theory, 4 broken ribs, concussion, out, 3 to 6 months or whatever, pain in the ribs, it took a year to heal, whatever, make a reasonable demand, try to settle the case. If you don't settle the case, go prove it and see what that's worth. I think somebody said they think broken ribs would be $5,000 in the UK. It's worth a lot more here. It is very painful. And we get a lot more for broken ribs in this kind of case. So that's what I would have gone with, because it changed my life forever. It was like and I'm going to hold that quote until we get to his cross from his side. But everything was different after the accident for him. It's like, different how? Different good? Eisgul's comment, different good?
Netherlands 3 times.
I don't remember.
Well, if you're disputing it, then we pull it out of your deposition.
I don't remember. I have no reason to dispute it or agree.
Okay, Morocco twice. True?
Likely, very likely.
Canary Islands. I need to know if you're disputing these things.
I can't dispute it, no.
Thailand. Did you go to Thailand after the collision?
Yes.
Did you visit at least the states of Washington, Oregon, Montana, and Idaho after the collision?
Probably, yes.
Let's go to 1147. You're a Facebooker, right? At least you were at the time. You posted a lot on social media.
Relative to other people, it didn't seem like I did. Very little.
All of these pictures are from your personal Facebook after the collision.
Okay.
Let's go to number 47. And is there a way to enlarge it, James?
Hey, look who's sitting in the audience. It's the doctor. the good doctor, who I think really wants Gwyneth Paltrow to win this case.
Doing a selfie in your backyard.
Beautiful sunset, probably so.
Page 48. Having a party in your backyard.
No.
These were weird. The sunset and the backyard pictures were weird. Now, the skiing and all that stuff, I'm totally with. But like, for defendants to act like a plaintiff can never smile again or can never talk to people again because they've been injured and permanently injured is annoying to me and frustrating. But that's not what we have here. We have a lot more than that here, okay, before the chat explodes. We have a lot more than that here. But like a picture of him smiling, come on. He's never had a good day in the last 7 years. He didn't say that. He kind of got close to saying that, but most plaintiffs don't say stuff like that.
That was somebody else's party. I just dropped it. It was my renter's party.
If you can straighten it up.
Cinco de Mayo. And she wanted to use the back deck.
And enlarge if you can. You went to a party in your backyard after the collision, true?
I just visited to make sure they had everything they needed.
Yes?
Yes.
Page 49, not very good quality. This is from you and your girlfriend at the time smiling, true?
Yes, yes.
Next one, number 50. This is a picture of you and your girlfriend.
Yes.
And smiling big, right?
Smile, camera, yep.
Next,
I really don't like the smiling pictures. They had so many good pictures. Why even use the smiling pictures? But whatever. We get their point.
Next one, 51. This is you and your girlfriend. Is that Southern Utah hiking?
I don't remember where.
Looks like you have one of those cool backpacks with water on. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Next one, 52. This is you going on a hike, taking a picture of a moose, right?
Yes.
Nothing like fresh, cool air, a running brook, and easily entertained and hungry company. That's your personal post. Is that true?
Yes.
53. This is another picture of you on a hike. True?
Yes, trying out my camera saying smile.
Every one of these pictures is after the collision. Page
Yeah.
54. This is you and your girlfriend at the time. Is that true?
Yes.
You look pretty happy. You agree?
Yes.
Page 55. This is you and your girlfriend. This is the very same year, 2016, as the incident in question. This is you and your girlfriend on your Facebook. All smiles. True?
Yes, true.
56. Let's look at another picture. You and your girlfriend on a hike smiling. True?
Yes.
You have that cool backpack on again?
Yes.
Camelback. Is that the
Yes,
brand?
it is.
Page 57. Let's go again. Is this you? Same year of the accident. Hiking?
Yes.
That looks pretty steep.
Trying to get back in shape, yeah.
I don't know how steep it is, but again, so let me make another comment that got some heat on Twitter. All of these posts about the fact that Terry Sanderson still skied, still hiked, still zip lined, still white water rafted, still did all this stuff, traveled the world, more countries than I will ever go to in my life. Post-accident proves that the defense does not even buy their own baloney about how Terry Sanderson has dementia and is decrepit and has osteoarthritis to the level that he can't turn his neck without hurting. That is a totally disingenuous argument. That is not true at all. The records do not prove that. Terry Sanderson's life has not proven that. It is not unsafe for him to walk around and ski and hike and do these things. And that's why I was annoyed when they were trying to use some of those prior complaints at a primary care physician, basically, against him to say there's no way he could have possibly been injured. But you know what's great evidence? So while I don't agree with that argument by the defense, this is great evidence. Pictures like this, testimony like this, evidence that he can literally do more than most healthy people. And he is supposed to have had a catastrophic injury from a ski crash where he flew in the air and landed and blacked out for 0, 2, 5, 40 minutes. Everything changed for him that day. Nothing was the same. Everything was worse. His life is terrible now. This is evidence that literally nukes pain and suffering for a plaintiff's lawyer. Even if I believed that Gwyneth Paltrow caused this accident, it would be nearly impossible for me to get to 6 figures in pain and suffering damages for a guy that was able to do all this, some of it within a year of the crash. And there's more.
Page 58. Is this you kayaking after the collision? We're 7 months after the collision.
Absolutely not.
Is that a kayak above you?
I don't know what it is.
Sir, I asked you about this in your deposition. Is this you kayaking?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, boy.
I was trying on helmets to protect my head.
Did you go kayaking after the collision?
I don't remember that, but this was not it. This was in a local.
It's a whole different question. Let's ignore the picture.
Thank you.
Did you kayak after the collision?
No, I don't think so.
All right, let's try to find it. You went scuba diving, right?
What
So
year?
if Terry Sanderson was a little more savvy, he would make Owens impeach him over and over again, knowing he only has 30 minutes. But instead, he just decided to agree with all of this. Just fine.
After, I don't even care what year. After the collision.
I did go sometime after
I
that
don't even care what
You went to an auto show in Germany. Does this sound right?
with my daughter. Yes.
Went to a shooting range. Does this sound right?
Yes.
BMX bike show, right?
Maybe, not sure.
Scuba diving 4 different occasions. Is that true?
Probably on the same week, on the same trip, probably.
Went on a boat ride several canals in the Netherlands. True?
Yes.
You rode bikes?
Yes.
Did bus tours?
Yes.
Boat tours?
Yes.
Auto show we talked about. Explored older towns in Central Europe. True?
True. With my daughter, it was wonderful.
Morocco. Is there a word called Marrakech?
Yeah, yes.
What is that again?
It's a city.
All right. You visited there twice?
I did. Zakia.
Explored Jewish markets there?
Yes.
Cultural sites, the Dior Museum. Is that cool?
Yes, I did.
Is that cool? He's looking over at the jury. What do they think of me?
All right, let's move on. The kayak. Is there a reason are you wearing a helmet for a kayak with a kayak right above you?
You know, I'm in a sporting goods store on the west side that has everything in it, and there was a mirror right there. And I was trying on helmets for protection, not for kayaks, just for general protection. Maybe.
I don't know
For
what
skiing
that
at that time. I was
means.
looking. They didn't have anything I wanted.
All right,
I was looking for a MIPS helmet.
let's go to 59. You went to a rock concert. Is that true? After the collision?
I probably did.
Same year. Let's go to 60.
I think this is when I tried working for the green team recycling again.
That's after the collision?
Yes, that's the team. I tried it.
That's you on the first row on the right with the big smile. True?
Yes, that's me.
Let's go to 61.
Oh, and Carlene's there.
61. Is this your girlfriend at the time in a cool looking waterfall?
It is.
Let's go to 62. Is this you after the collision up in the ski resorts, or what is this?
About a year later. I think I was just walking up the hills above my house.
Okay, page 63. Is this you skiing after the collision?
It could be. I did go with Robin one time to try it out. I tried it by myself twice.
Okay, 60. Well, I'm asserting that this is you skiing after the collision. Do you dispute it?
It was that following year. I don't dispute it.
Okay, 64. Is this you out with your drinking buddies?
Yes.
Did you have an installed breathalyzer in your car? Yes or no?
I had a personal
With your drinking buddies. Owens throws that in there.
one that's just holding your hand.
Page 65. Is this you and your notes? Is this you and your
Yes, being proud of my daughters, being strong daughters, because we're in an exhibit that was about strong women.
page 66? And you went to that exhibit, right?
I did.
Is this you? This is a post highly recommending the escape room for fun, family engagement, and problem solving. Yes?
Especially if you go with teenagers, it's a ball.
Okay, but you're
Yes.
actually contributing to figuring out how to get out of a kind of a scary, mysterious room.
You just put the kids in charge. They figured out it's amazing.
67.
So there are parts where I think he thinks the jury is totally with him and totally buying all this. But just wait. I'll tell you where I think he's going at the end of this.
Is this you wheels up at Salt Lake bound for Europe the year after the collision?
That's the empty seat next to me that Robin was supposed to sit in and told me she didn't like me anymore, that my personality changed.
Did you go to Europe and did you post this? Wheels up bound for Europe.
I posted it.
It doesn't say, I'm really sad that my girlfriend won't come with me. It doesn't say that. It's like,
Nope.
okay.
I
Page
just
60.
wasn't sure that would happen.
68, Switzerland. Lots of wondrous sights.
Yes,
My travels through Europe, right?
yes. My daughter took Robin's place. I got
69, the Frankfurt International Auto Show, year after the collision.
Yes.
The Mercedes exhibit, page 70. Another beautiful day in paradise with your girlfriend. Is this your post after the collision? Feeling happy, it says at the very top. Did you post this?
I believe I did.
In 71. You're on some kind of tour boat in the Netherlands or something. Does this sound right?
I don't remember where, but yes.
Page 72. Is this you and your girlfriend in the Netherlands?
That was a new friend, yes.
Page 73. Is this you on a bike ride looking fit and happy? Yes?
Yes.
Page 74.
Looking fit and happy.
Is this you at the Siam Park with some friends?
Just the two, just Zakia and her son, Shaquille.
And what country is Siam Park in?
I think it's Canary Island. It's just a soft Bronco. It's a Canary.
Page 75, you and your buddies. One night, it's my turn to be wingman. There's no chicks and dancing girls. Do you see that? That's
I
your
do.
post?
I do.
Page 76.
It's embarrassing. And again, social media can be really embarrassing to a lot of people, but you get the idea. And he continues on with this. And then, just to drive it home and redirect, I was told to travel as part of the healing process. Jenny traveled with him, which I thought was interesting. Jenny, who we heard from the depot, yeah, but nobody actually put her depot into evidence, which was interesting to me. He never said he couldn't travel, but he did say his brain injury changed everything in his life. And here's the quote I saved till now, because even after seeing all of that, after seeing it all and explaining it all to this jury, he still has the gall to say it was like a light switched and everything changed after the accident. It's like, sir, you traveled more than most people will do in multiple lifetimes. You did things physically that normal 50-year-old people can't do. Everything changed like the flip of a switch after this accident because of this accident, after what we just saw and heard, and he still says it. He still says it. Paltrow said she was hit by a very large man. You're 5'5", she's 5'10". We get into that. He recounts the fall again, how he was on the right side, and how that's been misstated. The hit and run. Listen, it's obvious he feels like she hit and ran. Owens was like, the judge dismissed that, right? Pretty good point. But then, one of the weirdest parts of this entire trial was right near the end of his testimony. And so people have some comments about whether or not he regrets bringing this lawsuit. But let's listen to his kind of the end of his testimony with his attorney.
A moderately to high fall is what it seemed like. Lots of people.
And were you skiing back and forth on the run, or did you stick to the right side?
We'll get there in a second. We'll play here kind of the end of his testimony with his attorney.
Another fact that's been changed. I was on the right side, exactly like I said. Saw all the people congealed in the middle and just went diagonal straight over to the right side and stayed inside of that 5-yard boundary where nobody was. One lone person coming out once in a while that was that was down a ways.
And that's when the scream happened, and that's when you were hit.
Absolutely, and there was no one in front of me.
And how did you land, to your recollection?
Downhill, of course. I'm going downhill, so our heads are downhill. So that's I saw down the hill and crashed there, and I didn't remember doing this, but I did put my hands out to catch myself. That was instinctual, save my face. But we landed, and I remember lurching off the right foot as I got hit. I thought I got to use whatever I can, and I pushed it deliberately a little bit to the right because I did not want anyone in the crowd to get tangled up in us as they're going by. And I did see, just before I hit the ground, I just remember seeing a scooter on the left. Goodbye.
Mr. Owens asked you, hit and run. You said it was a hit and run. Why did you say it was a hit and run?
I always considered a hit and run was something when you ran into something or somebody, and then you just let down and knocked out, and nobody's around.
For a number of days, you've heard all the doctors testify your entire life.
Here we go.
Thank you for clarifying.
You've been here for a number of days. You've heard all the doctors testify. Your entire life has now been broadcast to the world.
I feel like I've been fleshed out, and anyone up here, I think, would feel the same way. Very painful.
In fact, I think you.
That's true. And it absolutely sucks. And we've said it here already on this channel. This is what happens to you when you bring a lawsuit. They try to tear you down any which way, whether it's relevant or not. But then it gets weird.
You just told me back there, well, I could never go on another dating site again.
It's true. Everyone knows. Too much.
Do you regret bringing this lawsuit?
Well, that's the purpose, I think, is to make me regret this lawsuit. And
that's absolutely the purpose. He's right about that. And I think this is the moment where we start to see that maybe Terry Sanderson knows he's going to lose this case. Because what he does next kind of reminds me, I don't know if there's any like college football fans. It happens a lot in college because the kids are a little younger. But it's like you're in a tournament game or you're about to make the playoffs, maybe even high school. The team that's losing sometimes will just like start a fight because they're mad. And they don't care because they don't have anything happening next week. They're going home. But the other team, if they bait them into a fight, could lose one of their best players for the next round. And Owens, I think, used extreme patience and self-control to not explode and bring more attention to the comments we're about to hear.
It's the pain of trying to sue a celebrity. It's just very difficult. I will tell everyone that. You're going to get exposed.
Your Honor, we're not talking about this case now. He's talking about the world.
Sustained as to the generalization.
Was it important to you to bring this lawsuit?
It was. I felt like I was seriously injured. And then I had so many insults added to that. I think, as I said the other day, so many insults added to that and layered on that after a while.
Your Honor, post-collision conduct is not an issue. Layered on insults is not part of the lawsuit.
Overruled?
Yeah, I disagree with him there. Yeah. I do disagree with Owens there, but we haven't gotten to the wild comment yet.
I'm classifying it as an insult, but it's absolutely ignoring me, ignorance. And that's what it felt like. It's like, what is going on here? This is obviously an issue that someone needs to be accountable for. And if they're never accountable, what are they going to do? They're going to do it again. Now we have the molesting of young children on an island. Denial.
What? What did he just say? We have, like, if Gwyneth Paltrow wins this case, it's like covering up molesting young children on an island. Is that the connection he was trying to make? Because I'm not following. I know he didn't actually say that, but is that what he's trying to get this jury to think? Let's listen to it one more time, see if anybody can figure out what the heck he's talking about.
They're going to go on here. This is obviously an issue that someone needs to be accountable for. And if they're never accountable, what are they going to do? They're going to do it again. Now we have the molesting of young children on an island. Denial.
This is ridiculous testimony. He's talking about.
Sustained as to relevance, the last part, the jury should.
Like, they're going to do it again? What, Gwyneth Paltrow's going to, like, let's say she was at fault for protection. She's going to accidentally ski into somebody again? I don't think she wants to ski into anybody, even if she wins, even if she did do it. Even if she is liable and she lied about her story, I don't think what she's going to want to do after this is go ski into somebody again. Same thing with somebody texting and driving, like an accident where somebody's hurt. People usually don't want to go do that again. Now, maybe they will because they will throw caution to the wind because they won, but it's not like stealing money from somebody where if you get away with it, you want to steal more money. That was so incredibly weird to me. I did not see that coming, and it felt like a man who knew he was defeated. That is totally my speculation. I am just telling you my immediate reaction to such a wild comment, and that's all it is. That's not any legal analysis on my part. Then Owens gets up on redirect and says, you're the reason this is broadcast to the world. I would argue he's the reason we're here in court, but nobody's here to see Terry Sanderson. You don't like to be ignored. And then on recross, you were skiing safely, whether he was blind in his right eye or not, whatever. And then before we get to the questions, hit that like button and let me know if you've enjoyed this. 8,600 people in the chat. I think this might be the biggest one we've had. I don't know if we've hit 9K on any. So hit that like button so we can get to 10K likes. But let's get to some fun at the end of the video today where they discuss just that good old country lawyer. And I'm going to slow this one down so we can kind of enjoy it here before we get to the Q&A portion of the video.
And it's not really clear how that's going to work with the counterclaim on your form. So I think it's close. I mean, I prefer the language that you guys have because that's what's from the website form. I understand, I'm looking to you to put together the.
I think he's looking to both parties.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll
cooperate.
We'll cooperate with them. Right. Okay. And then we can address it tomorrow when we appear at 8:15.
Okay,
after the motions.
You get us all here or just the court people?
Anyone who wants to argue, be here.
I don't like arguing.
Or object.
I'm just a country boy.
I think it was Owens that said, I'm just a country boy, but he's not the only one.
You like that.
I walk past him in the hall and I object.
But he's just a simple country lawyer. Did we just say that at the same time?
So, Your Honor, we did file.
I mean, that's amazing. That's good. I mean, this is some bad stuff is happening to some lawyers in my area. And we're going to talk about that case where potentially a lawyer could have been victimized for doing his job. And whatever we say about Owens, and I have had lawyers where there's a specific lawyer that really reminds me of him, which is maybe where some of this is coming out at him. But even at the end of the day, and when we're having this, we can joke around, we can have a good time with him. It is what it is. He's a person. I don't like his style, but he's probably a good dude. He's probably a funny guy. And I like seeing this at the end of the day, everybody getting along, everybody joking with each other, everybody trying to just continue pushing forward for their clients and zealously representing their clients in this situation. I don't think I have any more clips. I may, but I'm going to run through some of the questions here. So Erica, can the jury award GP more than $1? It seems like the answer to that's going to be no, based on how they're going to do the verdict form and the jury instructions. John, was it bad looking when Attorney Sykes and defense dropped the ball in front of the jury that they lost evidence during Dr. Akinazzi's testimony? Also, TS now says GP brought little kids to the islands. What? OMG. So he didn't say she brought little kids to the island. He said that's what happens when celebrities cover stuff up. I am not positive what you're talking about, the lost evidence during that doctor's testimony. Mandy, I'm surprised every time Owens gets an objection and he doesn't stomp his foot and cross his arms. He acts like a child. Why doesn't the judge say something to all his talking objections? The judge is just trying to keep this thing moving. And I thought the judge is also really good about being like, Mr. Owens, you've said what you need to say. You can call whoever you want. You're in control of your witnesses and the time. You get to use 50% of the time. It doesn't matter how much time they use. I'm going to cut them off when they use their time. And he did. He held them to their time. And guess what? The plaintiff didn't get close to using it all. Grace, why did the plaintiff even call Gibby if he knew the defense had this guy? I don't know, but I agree with you. Gibby was part of the problem. He was part of the problem. Not his fault, by the way. Stephanie, I haven't seen all of this trial, so sorry if this is obvious, but did any of the plaintiff's expert review the 2009 imaging and compare it to the post-accident images? Seems like the answer to that is no. Penelope, Peter, I admire the fact that you only take cases you believe in. Would you have taken Sanderson's case on contingency? So we kind of went over this. At this point, I'm leaning toward the no side, especially if he wanted to tell me this affected his entire life and wanted to ask for $3 million. I probably would have said, listen, you may be right about how the accident happened. I absolutely believe you were injured in the accident. I'm just not sure we see eye to eye on the value of the case. Cricket, he felt abandoned, woke up, no one was there. So who was he apologizing to exactly? That's a good point, but he also said he was kind of out of it when he apologized. Mehdi, is Owens a Utah-based lawyer? I have no idea. I feel like he's been behaving arrogant and obnoxious throughout this trial because the trial is televised and he's trying to gain clout. I don't think he's gaining clout. He may win, though, and that, solves everything. I find him embarrassing. It's Marlo. Would you turn down a client you believe but don't think you can win for whatever reason? Does that suck? Yes, it would suck, and I would think, depending on the reason I couldn't win, it is potentially possible that I could believe a client and still not take the case for a lot of reasons, especially if I think it'd be worse off for the client if we did take the case and pursue it. Marjorie, Peter, if I am a non-religious witness, how do I swear so help me God? Are there alternative oaths in Utah? Well, first off, if you're a non-religious witness, you shouldn't care that you're swearing so help you God because you don't think God has any bearing over you, I would think. But I would also assume you could ask the judge if you could swear without using that language, and they might say yes, depending on the jurisdiction. Johnny's girl, Gwen's experts never examined him. He should win. So the plaintiff is hoping that there are some jurors like you sitting on the panel. Willow, thanks for all you do, Peter. Thank you so much, Willow. And thank you to everybody that's joined us tonight and that has asked questions. We're going to run through some more here. We are almost done, maybe another 5 or 10 minutes, but I always appreciate everybody who jumps in here, talks through this stuff in a calm manner, giving each other grace so we can learn from the disagreements we have. KWNY Upstate. Can a horribly disabled man whitewater raft, skydive, bike, hike, ski, scuba dive, travel around the world, fight along SEAL Team 6, etc.? I think we get your point. I like how Terry Sanderson apologized to Gwyneth. Yes, he did, Deborah. How quickly do you think the jury deliberations will be? Ashley asked. I think they'll be done by Thursday night. If they get it Thursday at noon when they're supposed to, I think they'll be done by Thursday night. Lisa, can they award $0? And do you think that's likely to happen? Does it happen in these cases often? If I had to guess right now, I think Paltrow is going to win her $1. That's where I'm leaning. But we'll see how closings go tomorrow. Yes, they could technically rule in favor of Terry and give him $0. Deborah B. But Peter, what about mental pain and suffering? So pain and suffering in our jurisdiction, at least, includes mental anguish. It was a broad question. I was just trying to get an idea, and I think it served its purpose to say that 70+% are giving him a very nominal amount of damages in this case. Tiffany, have you ever had an expert witness completely blow it on the stand? Yes, one time, even though they were well prepared. P.S. Mama Z is officially a new fan. Welcome, Mama Zabranik. Yes, it happened one time. We actually ended up getting a hung jury, but it was a criminal case, and I was not happy with how it went. And it was a great expert we've used a million times, very experienced. Liz Gee, if Facebook pics aren't posted as public, can a lawyer obtain them for such proof evidence to back their case? So they can ask if you have pictures of certain events. And if they somehow get access to that, you posted them even to just your circle of friends, it is possible for them to get a copy of that. They can also ask for a copy of your entirety of your Facebook, and it depends on the jurisdiction as to whether or not they can get pictures you posted on Facebook, even though they're not public. Anything you post publicly, they obviously have access to. Big LC, catching up. My MRI shows up normal after 6 months after suffering a TBI, yet I'm still suffering from it even now. Absolutely. You don't have to have those findings on the MRI, which is exactly the point why I think Giddy kind of hurt the case, because he used those green arrows to point to what he thought was objective findings of a brain injury. You do not have to necessarily have something like that. The subjective complaints can't show, like when they test you for a concussion, a lot of times it's, follow my finger. What day is it? They ask you questions. They look at your pupils. Are you falling asleep? Are you throwing up? There's a lot of things that don't show up on an MRI and how they diagnose a concussion. But once you say this is objective evidence, you open yourself up. Lisa, isn't the total $3 million for just his pain and suffering? I believe that's the case. If that's pain and suffering, I must be dead. You get my point. Yes. He's living a full life, it seems. Abby, chronic illness warriors here. My Facebook doesn't represent the struggle pain behind my photos, but then again, I couldn't do half the stuff, half of what he does at age 38. I would have asked that question. Terry, when you're sad, do you post pictures of yourself being sad on social media? When you're laying in bed and you were in the orange chair for however many months, were you posting pictures on social media? Is that what you do when you're, feeling at your worst? Or do you put your best moments on social media? I would have asked questions like that. Robin, if everything changed, how much did he travel prior? Maybe he meant change for the better because he was hit by a celebrity. Jay-Z, my ex had to wear a helmet after his TBI to protect himself when he had seizures, not for kayaking. It's true. Isgul, I feel like Terry Sanderson regrets that he went for this trial. Maybe he gets angry at himself in front of the mirror every day. Maybe he realized that it didn't happen. He is remembering now. It's not going well. It didn't go well for him today. Andy Carter, Peter, how is it not defamation when one expert, defamation when one expert, that's just a different opinion. When you're reviewing records, it's not defamation. It doesn't meet the definition at all. Don Burke, Epstein, just a thought. I heard some Harvey Weinstein stuff, but I have no idea. Joanne, why does his lawyer make eye contact with the jury when questioning? It's so creepy. Lots of lawyers do that. They think it's better to get the jury's attention like that. I don't know. Under certain circumstances, maybe. Can GP sue TS for that comparison? No, it wasn't specific enough, I don't think. He was kind of saying celebrities generally, and he's right. Celebrities have been caught doing some really creepy things. That last comment lost the case, in my opinion. Strange man and strange comment. It was definitely weird, P-Hop. Italia girl. Anytime you go to a new doctor, you are asked to sign a release of medical records. It's very pertinent to know the whole scope of what the patient history is. We went into detail on this on another video, so I don't want to repeat myself. Kim Ripley. Polly testified that Jenny went on this trip with him, and it was awful and didn't end well. I agree. Detect the disorder. This is narcissism. These people make up these crazy, ridiculous, grandiose statements, and they seriously fool the court system all the time. I don't know. I don't feel like the court system gets fooled that often. Sandra, this case is like a crazy case, literally movie I saw. Now I understand why you're in civil law. Changed my mind completely. I love it. I love it too. And it's wild, but it's fun helping people in these situations, I got to say. John Long, welcome to the membership crew, man. Lynn, This is an absurd use of the court and seems to be happening across America. Can the courts do a better job of frivolous lawsuits? I wish they would crack down on frivolous lawsuits. It would make everything better. It would unpack the court system, and it would hopefully keep jurors from thinking every case is a frivolous lawsuit. I'm not saying this one is, but I wish they would. Verdict by Friday, John? I think so. I think Thursday night, but at the very latest Friday. Marjorie, feel like crying hearing his travels after yesterday's doctor, a 39-year-old man who suffered a truly devastating stroke. Get a grip, Sanderson. Interesting. Mittens, the murder kitten. How did TS not realize that GP could throw her money at experts and beat him instead of the money to settle? Oh, he wanted to stand up to a celebrity, he said. Thank you, John Long, for the super sticker. Susan Ramos, thank you. Live from Seattle. Enough with comparisons with other people's travel. You don't know how hard life is for him. GP has more money than most others. She shouldn't be suing. If she deserves justice, he does too. You haven't lived to the TBI. I agree. If you believe that that is in fact the case, I don't have any problem with that. But he's got to prove to you that that is the case. Azam, if TS loses this case, it looks like it, on what grounds can he appeal? Thanks, Peter. I'm still learning a lot of new things. Tons of grounds. Tons of grounds. I think Owens has done a couple things that are improper. I don't know if they're going to rise to the level of actually overturning it. I think the use of Jenny's deposition has been a little inappropriate. And I think some of the medical testimony went too far into irrelevant comorbidities. But there are other things as well. Peter, Deborah B., take a green NyQuil capsule and go to bed. I know, I'm about ready to. Jacqueline Eagles. Peter, love your channel. Using your referral, by the way. Awesome. Jocelyn, sorry, my eyes are starting to go too. Awesome. I'm glad we could help. And we're meeting lots of people through YouTube, meeting lots of clients we can actually help in these situations with legitimate issues. Temp, EDB spoke today about how great of a judge you will be. Will be. Judge will be. I think you mean judge I will be, which is funny. That's a big compliment from her, so I appreciate that. But I don't think I'm ever going to be a judge. I don't really have any interest in it. I love doing what I do. And honestly, this fulfills something I really like, talking about this stuff with you guys and being able to break this stuff down and water cooler type stuff with you. Dawn Burke, even if I had her money, I wouldn't relent if I was innocent. And I think that's totally fair. But all right, that's all we got tonight. Azam, we're going to go out on this super sticker. I appreciate everybody joining me. Actually, we'll go out on Brooklyn Basement since I'm in fact wearing my Biggie shirt. The Brooklyn Basement. Give me the loot. Give me the loot. Terry Sanderson. But now I'm out of here. Oh, lawyer, judge, Okay, I got it. I'm a little slow. I'm just a country lawyer. Okay, I'm just a country lawyer. Yes, I got it, Temp. That's my B. That's my B. All right, everybody. Enjoy the outro and hit that like button before you leave. You guys are the best. I'll talk to you tomorrow night. I'm actually flying out of town, so we'll be doing the live. I'll be with John. We'll be doing the live together from an undisclosed location. Until then, thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Tragos Law is our handle. And don't forget to listen to the Lawyer You Know podcast featuring new episodes every week. If you have a know you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.